जनरेशन नेक्स्ट मधील आज दुसऱ्या लेक्चर मध्ये सर्वांचे हार्दिक स्वागत. आज आपल्याकडे स्पीकर म्हणून आरती अंबिके मॅडम आलेले आहेत. ते आपल्याला मृत्यूपत्र या विषयावरती माहिती सांगतील. मी संघटनेतर्फे आपल्या सदस्य कमिटी मेंबर रुपाली म्हात्रे यांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी मॅडमचे इंट्रोडक्शन द्यावं. थँक्यू.
थँक्यू सर. नमस्कार. TDCB आयोजित जनरेशन नेक्स्ट अंतर्गत दुसऱ्या व्याख्यान मालिकेत आपल्या सर्वांचं मनापासून स्वागत. आज आपला विषय आहे विल म्हणजे मृत्यूपत्र. या विषयावर आपल्याला मार्गदर्शन करण्यासाठी लाभलेल्या व्यक्त्या आहेत. गेली 22 वर्ष ठाणे कोर्ट आणि मुंबई कोर्ट येथे हसतमुखाने आणि तितक्याच खंबीरपणे वकिली करणाऱ्या आरती आनंद अंबिके मॅडम या ज्येष्ठ वकील ऍडव्होकेट श्री विजय आगाशे साहेब यांच्या ज्युनियरी आहेत. जे मॅडमना ओळखत असतील थोडक्यात परिचय देते. त्याआधी मी मॅडमचं TDCBA सर्व ऑनलाईन श्रोत्यांतर्फे हार्दिक स्वागत करते. मॅडमनी 1997 साली रुपारेल कॉलेज मुंबई येथून वकिली परीक्षा पास केली. रुपारेल कॉलेज मधून त्यांनी दुसरा नंबर पटकावला होता. सिव्हिल कन्झ्युमर प्रोटेक्शन ऍक्ट, प्रॉपर्टी अँड रेव्हेन्यू लिटिगेशन्स यामध्ये त्या खूप हातखंड आहे मॅडमचा या प्रॅक्टिस मध्ये. तसेच एलाइट कॉर्पोरेट आणि बांधकाम व्यावसायिकांना मार्गदर्शन करणे व प्रसंगी त्यांच्यासाठी कोर्टात हजर होणे, त्यांची बाजू मांडणे याही खूप ह्याच्यात मॅडमचा हातखंड आहे. मॅडमनी याच्या व्यतिरिक्त मॅडमनी वेगवेगळ्या लॉ कॉलेजेस मध्ये मूट कोर्ट्स, मीडिएशन कॉम्पिटिशन यामध्ये जज म्हणूनही काम पाहिले आहे. अजूनही त्या जज म्हणून त्यांना बोलवले जाते. आजचा विषय आहे आपला विल आणि ते इज एक्झिक्युशन प्रूफ. विल म्हणजे काय, त्याचे प्रोव्हिजन्स, कोण करू विल, कोण मृत्यूपत्र करू शकतं, त्याच्या आपल्याला करण्यासाठी आज अंबिके मॅडम इथे उपस्थित झालेल्या आहेत. त्यांना मी विनंती करते की त्यांनी याबाबत सर्वांना मार्गदर्शन करावे.
Thank you, Rupali. In fact, thanks, Rupali. The way you have introduced me from the car itself shows that this is really a generation next lecture. I am indeed thankful to the entire managing committee of the Thane District Court Bar Association for introducing this new online lecture series under the caption Generation Next. I'm quite sure this new venture will give the upcoming advocates or the generation next a chance to debut them before the general in this webline lectures. I, of course, want to give my thanks to our Honorable President, Mr. Prashant Kadam of the Thane Bar Association for reposing confidence in me and giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on this interesting subject today. Will or Mrityupatra as the subject is, I'm quite sure that many of us, when we hear this word will or Mrityupatra, the immediate thought that comes to everyone's mind is, come on, I'm not at the end of my life or the fag end of my life to even think of such a document or execution of this document. There is still time for me to execute such a document. We all, in fact, if we think, past few days are going through a very difficult phase of life, which neither of us have imagined nor experienced. The pandemic which has come before has made the entire world stand still. If we probe a little, we find that generally also, the people, or knowingly or unknowingly, every person on this earth is keeping a track record or taking a toll of deaths what are happening in the entire country. I would say not only in the entire country, but the entire world. This pandemic has, in fact, by the fear of death, has brought the entire world to a standstill. To the extent, I would say, this fear, whatever is there, or the fright of death is making us do things like crazy. We are keeping constantly sipping hot water, inhaling steams, eating herbs and eating masalas and whatnot and what so, Whatever is told, we are ready to do. We are all sitting for past 4 months at home, but we are just with the fear that nothing should happen to us. My dear friends, the purpose of telling you this is that we all are happy living our lives. None of us want to die. We all want to fulfill all our obligations while living. We accumulate a lot of wealth, or we accumulate by our hard work a lot of wealth which we want to secure to our families. And I would say this bill or Mrityu Patra, therefore, is not only a document which will rather bring fear in your mind, but it is a document, I would say, like an insurance policy. While taking out an insurance policy, is anyone worried when we buy an insurance policy? Every one of us, are we going to meet with an accident, or are we going to die? Therefore, we buy this policy. I would say this bill, or here I would say not a Mrityu Patra, but it is a Ichha Patra, which is a document which will secure all your rather accumulation of wealth even after you are no more. So in my opinion, every person who is a responsible person or needs to comply with his obligations toward your family or the social obligations should execute a will without an age bar. I will say that this will should be executed by each and everyone. In fact, when I reveal further the provisions of will, which it is very easy to make a will. In fact, I would say our fraternity and generally the public also are aware that how a will should be made, or the general provisions of the will, because now the media also keeps on having such kind of discussions all the while. But today I am going to, of course, discuss the intricacies of will in the practice, like the execution and proof. The subject is very vast. The provisions of Indian Succession Act, under which this bill is governed, in fact, has 391 sections. There is too much to tell, but for you, I have comprised the said lecture in a very simple way by which you can as well understand as well as know the intricacies of its execution and proof. Now, to begin with, I firstly want to state that what is a will, how is it executed, who all can do it, when can you do it, about what can you execute it. So few basic questions first I'll deal with, and then I'll proceed further to the provisions or the important provisions which we need to understand. Basically, will or a Mrityu Patra or a Ichha Patra or Vasiyatnama, as different nomenclatures it has, is nothing but a document. A document, it is a document of transfer a person can make with the intention, but will come into effect only after the death of that person. So this document, in fact, in legal parlance, if we say, is a legal declaration of the intention of the testator with respect to the property which he desires to be carried out into effect after his death. When I talk about the provisions of the Succession Act, there are various terminologies or peculiar terminologies which go to this particular provisions. They are the testator or a legatee or a probate, letters of administration, bequeath. These normal verbs or this particular terminologies, we don't use it in normal life. But when we talk about will, these terminologies are generally used in legal parlance. So before proceeding further, I like to, in fact, in short, tell you what these terminologies are. We all are aware, as I told, will is a document which shows the legal or intention of a person to dispose his wealth on and after his death, which comes into effect for disposition of his wealth after his death. A codicil is another word. Codicil is again a document which is made in alteration or in revocation of a will. So if you want, or if you accumulate certain wealth after a will is made, or if you have disposed the wealth which you have written in your will, you need not cancel the entire will. What you can do is you can make a codicil. It is kind of an annexure to the will, and only to that aspect you can alter your will or change the will to that particular point. The third is testator. Testator is a person who makes a will. The person who writes a will is called as a testator. The next is the legatee. Legatee is in simple words a beneficiary. The person who gets the property or anything from the will is called as legatee, and the process is called as legacy. So I, by my legacy, has given my son or my daughter. So that son or daughter is called as a legatee. The next is bequeath. Bequeath is disposition or disposing of your property to someone by a will is called as bequeath. This is again a peculiar word which is used only when a will is made. The next word I will say is probate. We all discuss a lot. In fact, in our practice also, probate is something which there is a quite a debate as to whether to obtain a probate or not to obtain a probate. In detail, I'll touch these provisions a little later. But probate is kind of a certification of a will from the court of law that yes, this is the will which is it is certified by the court, and the probate is granted to the executor of the will for the administration of the estate of the deceased. The probate, again the word executor comes. What is the executor? Executor in short is Vyavasthapak, or the manager of the estate of the property till the time everything is distributed to everyone. So by a will, a person may appoint an executor or he may not appoint an executor. It is completely optional. If you have very rather lot of properties to be disposed, you can definitely appoint an executor so that the management of that rather giving is very well supervised by this executor. The next concept is about letters of administrator. Now, when by a will a person does not appoint a executor, then letters of administration again are given by the court in respect of that will. So again, the will is certified by the letters of administration, and the administration of the estate is given to the person or responsible person under that will to supervise again the distribution of that wealth of the deceased. So these are few terminologies which are peculiar, on the backdrop of which I'll further proceed to the provisions. The will is governed in India under the Indian Succession Act 1925. The Succession Act is broadly divided into two parts. One is the intestate succession and the second is testamentary succession. What is intestate succession? If a person dies without a will, without leaving a will, then his property is devolves as per the law of inheritance or law of succession, and then he is governed by the intestate succession. Will can be rather the provisions of Indian Succession Act are divided into two parts: intestate succession and testamentary succession. Intestate, a person, if he dies without a will, he is governed by intestate succession. So the laws of succession which are prevailing are he is dominated by that. The second is the testamentary succession. If a person leaves a will while dying, he is governed by the provisions of testamentary succession. Today we are dealing with testamentary succession. Part 6 of the Indian Succession Act entirely deals with the testamentary succession. Before proceeding further, I like to, in fact, tell the basics about will. Any person who can make a will, basically, any person who is of sound mind and of a major age, or who is not a minor. A major age is who has completed 18 years and who is of sound mind can execute a will. There is no other criteria basically to execute a will. But if you feel, I would say, when you accumulate a good amount of wealth, which you feel that the welfare of which is to be taken care of, you should execute a will. When you should execute, as I said, there is no bar or no time to execute a will. Whenever you feel, you can execute will. And there is quite a misconception in the minds that, oh God, if I execute the will, what will happen? whether I will be able to revoke it or not, if I sell my properties, if the position changes, if the properties are not there anymore, if I buy new ones, how do I change it? But you can change your will any number of times till you make your last will. It is not that once you have made a will, you are stuck, or that is your last will, or that is going to be read as your last will. No, you can revoke your will, you can alter your will, you can change it any number of times. And in fact, the law has such evolved now that, or in fact, the provisions are so clear that the last will be taken up as your only will which you have executed, and earlier ones will be ignored. So this misconceptions, and therefore I say ki every time is the right time to execute a will, because life is so uncertain that why not execute a will and secure the family of yours even if you are no more. The next question is that who can make a will? As I told you, this Indian Succession Act basically governs most of the religions, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Sikhs, the Jains, the Christians, the Parsis, except the Mohammedans. So I said that Hindus, these all religions can make a will under the provisions of Indian Succession Act 1925. As case of Mohammedans is concerned, whether they can make a will, in fact, there is no concept of will or a wasiyatnama in Mohammedans. They can execute a will only to the property of 1/3 of their property. Basically, the Mohammedans can, the laws of inheritance, they are governed by the Shariat laws in India. And if a Mohammedan dies intestate, he is governed by the Shariat laws or whatever are applicable to him in wherever region he is living. But he can execute a will only to the 1/3 of the undivided share in his property, only if he wants to give that property to the person, not his legal heir, but some third party or person or an institution of which they who are not his legal heirs. So in natural course, his devolution takes place naturally in the routine course, like to his children, wife, mother, or whoever his heirs are. But if he wants to give to an outsider, only then he can dispose only 1/3 of his property to that party or person. So in Mohammedans, basically they are not governed by the Indian Succession Act. Now about what can you make a will is an interesting aspect. We all know that yes, we can make a will about the movable or immovable property, what we have. That is about your स्थावर or जंगम मिळकत, जसं आपण मराठीत म्हणतो. It includes maybe your bank accounts, your shares, your mutual funds, or your jewelry, and anything and everything that is movable. You can also make a will about your immovable aspects or immovable properties. That is your land, your bungalows, your flats, or anything that is attached to the earth. Interesting part is, as time has evolved, there is a provision to make a will even to donate your organs. People have made wills to donate their eyes, to donate livers, to donate kidneys, because ultimately this transfer takes place only after demise of a person. One more interesting aspect is even the artist may be in any field. He may be a writer, he may be an artist, that is a painter, he may be a musician, he may be a speaker, he may be a poet. If he has a copyright of his works, he can will those copyrights to his further generations. The interesting part is, if a person dies without giving copyrights to his legal heirs, the copyrights can be used after a certain period of time by the general public. But if those copyrights are with his legal heirs, the legal heirs can earn money on the basis of those copyrights. So even this is a new concept which has taken or evolved as per time. The next aspect, a very recent one, we can execute a will rather to even state the line of treatment or a medical treatment one can have if you fall terminally ill. There are diseases by which a person lies in coma for many months. He lies or he's terminally ill, by which he is in the hospital or lying on the deathbed for a very long number of time. At that time, he can execute a will beforehand, by which he can state the line of treatment. This will has a peculiarity in which he has to appoint an executor, and the executor should be given the powers to revoke those will. Because if I state a particular line of treatment to be given to the whenever I fall sick, and maybe because of the expert opinions that line of treatment is to be changed anytime further, the executor, because I will be that time unconscious or in coma, so the executor is appointed in my place who can take decisions. This will is it has its particular form how it has to be executed. It needs a panel of doctors. It has to be kept with some hospital, because the line of action of medical treatment is to be discussed. So this is also one new type. I'll of course deal in detail with the types of wills also generally, to tell you what are the different types. So what can you make a will about? So you can make a will about generally of the immovable and movable assets or the properties what are with you. Then of course one more aspect, can you make a will about the share in the Hindu undivided family? Yes, you can make a will about that undivided share which is rather segregated from the joint family property, and you can will that to your legal heirs or whoever of your choice. So a will can be made of this all the aspects: movable, immovable, about your HUF property. You can donate organs, about the copyright of your works, or even the line of treatment. Further aspect that deals with is, how can I make a will, whether I'll require a stamp paper, whether registration of will is necessary. Basically, we all know that stamp paper or anything, rather a judicial stamp paper or anything is not required for making a will. You can simply write a will on any plain paper. You can write down, you can type down anything. You can write down the will on a plain paper. What is necessary, I'll come to that aspects also later, that you need two attesting witness who see you signing the will or acknowledging the signature on the will, and that is all you require. You can just write a will in your own homes, secured. You can keep those with in the cupboard and only let someone know that I have executed the will. Basically, that is the purpose, that the attesting witnesses generally are aware that you have executed the will. Whether registration of will is necessary. The Indian Registration Act section 17 deals with the registration of documents of transfer or any other documents which are required to be compulsorily registered. But will is such a document which doesn't require registration under the Indian Registration Act. It is not mandatory to register a will when it is executed. But if you want to register a will, generally it is registered when there are a lot of properties, or if you are quite sure that disputes are going to arise. It is better that you execute or register a will, and it in fact increases the authenticity of the will. Therefore, registration is done to increase the authenticity. For general documents which are there, which are to be registered under the Registration Act, the time limit for registration is 4 months from the date of execution. But will is that exception which may be registered even after the period of 4 months of your execution. So I execute my will today, I may register it maybe after a year or later, that is fine. The curious or the important aspect is a will may be registered even after the death of the testator. So even after the death of that person who executes the will may be registered by the executor or any of his legal heirs or representative with the registrar or the sub-registrar of assurances. Now coming to, so these are the general or the basics of the will, which I think will make everyone aware that how important this document is, or how is it executed. Then coming to the interesting provisions of probate or the letters of administration. I know the friends of my fraternity or all the junior advocates basically who keep on doing the work of probates or letters of administration. Many things come up in their mind as to whether there is a limitation to file a probate. Does everyone need to obtain the probate or letters of administration? So basically, probate, as I said, is certification of a will under the seal of the court with granting of administration of estate to that executor. So if an executor is appointed by the will, then he can obtain the letters of administration after a period of 7 days of the death of the testator. That is, if the person who has executed the will dies, after 7 days, minimum basic period has to be exempted, and after 7 days, he can file the proceedings for probate. Similarly, letters of administration. Letters of administration can be filed by any person who is in charge of the property of the testator. In fact, if the testator doesn't appoint an executor for his will, then any person who is in charge or the person responsible of that estate can file letters of administration and obtain that certificate from the on the copy of will. In short, these two proceedings are, they bring validation to the will that this will is legal and valid, and it is executed by the testator. So whenever you file these two proceedings, the will needs to be proved in the court of law. About the time limit to file the probate. Now, again on that, there are various judgments which have controversies that time limit, whether there is a time limit to file a probate proceeding, in how much time can you file it. But recently the law has evolved, and in fact the Supreme Court in the Indian Succession Act, the time limit or the prescription of time limit is not given for filing of the probate. Then you may say that whether Article 137 of the Limitation Act applies to filing of probate, whether the time limit. Yes,
Yes, continue, madam.
Yes, continue, madam.
Yes. So whether the time limit is prescribed for probate, the probate basically, the Indian Succession Act doesn't prescribe any limitation period or time limit for granting of probates. But then you may say that Article 137, which is a residuary article in Limitation Act for applications from the cause of action it accrues, is applicable, whether it is applicable for these provisions. A recent judgment, I will like to cite it for all of you, is of our Bombay High Court. First is AIR 1983 Bombay 268, and a recent one 2008 8 Supreme Court cases 463, Kuwarjit Singh versus Kirandeep Kaur. These two judgments, because in the 2008 judgment, the earlier judgment reference is made, and what is stated in these two judgments basically is that Indian Succession Act, as I stated, does not prescribe a time limit or a limitation for granting of probates. Therefore, residuary Article 137 doesn't prescribe, even though prescribes a limit of 3 years in granting of probates or granting of any applications. This article has no application for granting of probate. In short, there is no limitation period prescribed for granting of probate. So, do you mean that, yes, I'll repeat the citations once again. There are few comments here. They are 2008 8 SCC 463, Kuwarjit Singh versus Kirandeep Kaur. The second one is AIR 1983 Bombay 268. By these provisions, even though 137 or there is no time limit prescribed, what is stated by these judgments is that the Supreme Court, while discussing the law in this aspect, has stated that delay may arise as long as, or if you file the proceeding as late as after the death of the testator, there is always a suspicion in mind of the person or in the mind of the court also, that why there is a delay in filing of these proceedings, why have the executor come so late before the court. And for that purpose, what is expected is, in the pleadings, whenever you file the probate, it is necessary to rather give make your in your pleadings explicit or condone the delay by pleading to that aspect. What has made you come so late? That is, if the person has died in 2006, if you file the proceedings in 2020, all this span of 14 years, what made you not file the proceedings for probate, and what has made you come before this court so late for filing of the proceedings? So this aspect needs to be explained in the probate proceedings, because, and anyway, after the will is validated or proved before the court, the probate is naturally granted by the court. So the aspect is clear that for the probate or even letters of administration, there is no time limit or limitation for filing of those proceedings. Sections 211 or 211 onwards, they deal with the probate proceedings. The curious part is, whenever a probate is executed, that is after the death of the testator, the executor of the will, the property of the executor of the will, vests entirely with the executor, testator of the will, vests entirely with the executor for the administration of the estate. Then why is probate necessary, you will say? Even in case of letters of administration, there is no executor appointed. So after the person leaving a will, the property vests with the executor or in charge of the persons in whose favor the property is given. The executor, then what he does is, for the administration of that estate, he will see to it that vyavasthapan, that is, he will see to it, he will manage the property, he will give or distribute the property as per the will and wish of the testator. If what happens is, when do you need this probate? Section 213 of the Indian Succession Act makes it clear that if anything or if anybody challenges this kind of challenges the will, or if a will is disputed or any dispute regarding that will comes before the court, then probate is necessary to be taken it from the court or necessary to be filed before the court. Now, who and is that probate necessary to be filed by all and everyone who leave a will? Again, section 213 itself makes it clear that a person, rather it is not necessary obviously for the Muslims, but it is also not necessary for the persons who are mentioned in the category of A and B in section 57. Now, what is 57? 57 section of the testamentary succession part is a section basically which tells us that what happens is, the entire testamentary succession is divided into many chapters. That part is particularly is governed by section 57, or to whom the provisions of testamentary succession apply, is clearly enunciated in section 57. It states clearly that the various religions, that is the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Sikhs, the Jains, this part will apply. It will apply to the people residing in the 3 metros, Bengal, Bombay, as well as Madras. There is no mention of Delhi because it has come subsequently. So the people living in 3 metros, Bengal, Mumbai, that is Bombay, and Madras, the people who live in these metros, and the second criteria is, if they leave a will staying in those cities, should obtain a probate. And second criteria is, if you leave a property in these 3 metros, then you need to obtain a probate. So an executor of the will who leaves the property or who dies, basically a testator who dies in these three metros or who leaves a property in these three metros should obtain a probate from the court. So I hope, am I clear in this aspect? Now, if you read section 57 or section 213 in juxtaposition with section 57, or if you make a conjoint reading of section 57 along with section 213 of the Indian Succession Act, you will find that not every person who has or every executor needs to obtain a probate in respect of that will, but only these criteria, that is the person who stay in the metros can obtain a probate in or letters of administration for the administration of that estate. Now, there is always a debate, or rather various authorities or forums or societies ask for probate, that if you have left a will, then you need to obtain a probate. But I would say the person or the committees need to be little educated and not force the people to obtain such kind of documents from the courts, because if the law doesn't make a person mandatory to obtain such kind of documents or probates, they are not required basically by law. There is no question of forcing the person to get such kind of documents, because this increases unnecessary litigations in the courts. Asking people to bring such kind of certificates from the court naturally burdens the court record also. So I think I'm clear in this aspect. I also want to cite one more judgment on this point. It is reported in 2003 bracket 4 All Maharashtra Law Reporter 85. It is Bhagwan Rathod versus Surajmal Mehta of Justice Khanvilkar when he was the Justice of Bombay High Court. It is stated that if the property in this particular case, the person died in Pune, the property what he had disposed by the will was in Pune, and therefore whether the question again arose whether probate was required for that particular property left by the will. The Honorable High Court in this clear judgment explicitly has held and discussed the provisions of section 57 and section 213 of the Indian Succession Act. There are two pivotal judgments on this aspect. Usha Nair, it is of 79, and one of 84. Those two judgments are reiterated or referred in this authority of 2003. So I am not referring to those again. But by these two sections, the point is made very clear that every single person who executes a will or the executor of every will need not obtain a probate, barring those executed only in these three metros, Mumbai, Calcutta, or Madras. Going further, what happens is there are also provisions that if a will is lost or displaced, or if it is not found, or if it is stolen, then what can I do? Can I obtain a probate in that regard? Section 237 of the Indian Succession Act deals with this kind of wills. And yes, the court says, see, if you execute a will, or if you go to an advocate, you make a draft of that will, or if you keep a spare copy with someone, maybe with the executor of the will, that is a duplicate copy of that will. The original may be lost by the testator, or if it is now not found, then also you can obtain a probate on the basis of that copy or draft. It is, but of course, that needs to be proved or validated from the courts of law that yes, that was the will. For that, I'll come to the procedure of execution and proof little later. But we naturally need to prove this aspect that yes, certain things, that two witnesses were present and all that modalities have to be completed, because when the will is tested in the courts of law, the execution and proof needs to be dealt with. The further aspect now I'll go to, when these basic aspects of the will come into, I think I've made points clear on that. This is a crucial aspect. I don't say that this is really you need to, it is interesting aspect, so I like to deal with it, is the types of will. As I stated, there is a provision of testamentary will, which rather by which all the wills are covered. The testamentary will is divided into, or the will are divided into two parts, basically segregated into two parts: the privileged and the unprivileged will. What is privileged will? Privileged wills are generally executed by the soldiers when they are on the war front, or when they are actually on the battlefield. Maybe they are army, navy, air force, anyone. They are the soldiers who make the wills in that difficult circumstances when they are actually fighting on the battlefield. So they have different privileges in execution of the wills also. But then what are unprivileged wills? We all, that is the general public, is governed by the, what we execute are the unprivileged wills. So these are the two basic categories. Now in the unprivileged wills, we have also the contingent wills. What are contingent? The name itself is quite clear. I think they depend on the bequest is made on the happening of the event. That if certain and certain event happens, only then the property will be given to so and so, my son or daughter. That is particularly, it is I would say given to motivate a person that he should do something or not do something. Only then my property will go to him. That if he rather secures good marks, or if he and looks after the business very well, then my business will go to him, or then my house will go to him. So it is kind of a condition which is imposed by the testator at the time of making the bequest. The next category is the contingent will. This is again similar, like it is a conditional will which depends on the contingency, that is on the happening of that particular contingency that goes to that person. The next category is the conditional will. Conditional will is something that if I want to give my property to somebody, then I will say is first you comply with or repay my loans, and if anything is left, then you can take the residual of the property. So for that purpose, if I make such kind of will, what is first condition is that he should repay all of my loans or liens on my property, and then the balance property he can enjoy it. So unless this first condition is complied with, the second condition or the enjoyment of that property cannot be done. There are also mutual wills, which many of us do execute for our clients. They are mutual wills or joint wills, as we call. They are executed by the spouses, basically the husband and wife. Together, at times the husband and wife executes will, stating that if the husband or the wife predeceases the other spouse, then the property will go to the other husband or wife or the other spouse. So these are the second is the joint wills also. They need not be necessarily made by the husband or wife, but 2 or 3 persons can come together and make a will in respect of maybe their together estate, or in respect of the business that they carry out together. So that devolution also takes place on the basis of that joint wills. The interesting will, or the most is, as per again, the world has become too small. There are people who buy even estates in different parts of the world. I may have an estate in India, maybe I may buy properties in Europe, in England, in America. So a person who has properties in various parts of the world can make a concurrent will. A concurrent will is a will whereby he can make different wills at one given time in different countries for the properties which he has in different continents. So if I have properties in India, I can make a will as per provisions governing Indian laws. I can keep a will for the properties which I have in other continents as per the laws governing those particular countries. So this particular will or the type of will is called as concurrent will. There is also a concept of holographic will. These days, after computers or the typewriters are invented, nobody executes a holographic will, but a holographic will is a will written by hand. If a person writes down a will entirely by hand, it is called as holographic will. This will also contains authenticity, but it has its own advantages and disadvantages also. But this is also a type of will. It is called a holographic will. There are wills called as deposited wills or registered wills. Deposited wills or registered wills fall under section 42 or 43 of the Registration Act. These wills are particularly wills whereby you execute a will, the testator executes the will, he registers the will and keeps the will with the registrar, sub-registrar of assurances. That is, he deposits the will with the sub-registrar of assurances. Such will is opened only after the death of the testator or is taken into custody from the registrar by a particular procedure only after the death of the testator. So such kind of deposit of wills or the registered wills is also one of its kind. The last criteria is living wills. As I mentioned earlier, due to various kind of illness, if a person is knowing that if he's suffering from a very terminal disease, if he knows that he's not going to live more, or if he's not going to live whereby he may be in an understanding stage, or he will be capable to understand things, he can execute a living will. Supreme Court of India, the Honorable Supreme Court, on 9th March 2018 has brought this concept into force, whereby a person can make a living will, whereby he can decide the modus or the line of medical treatment which he would like to have if he falls ill or terminably ill, and if he doesn't understand, that is a stage of unconsciousness whereby he won't be able to decide that line of action. So at that particular time, the living will can be made by the person. As I stated, for this living will, the appointment of test executor is necessary, because at the material time, if you are not able to or in the capacity to understand certain things, your testator will take charge of you and decide the modus or the medical treatment you want to take. So on this, discussing the general basics of the will, I'll come to the drafting or the execution part of the will. My friends, the will, basically, we come over across the clients who come for the drafting of wills. We generally know that the will is divided into particularly 3 parts. First is the description of the testator who makes the will, that is his name, age, address, and whatever, like particular description of the testator. The second part is the recitals, or the main part whereby he bequeaths the properties or describes that which property goes to whom, which share will go to whom, and the disposition of his property takes place. And the third part is also important, that is the attestation of the will. There is basically no technical word or technical words or terms which are necessary to be mentioned in the will. As I stated, any layman, you need not go to an advocate to execute a will. Any person who wants to execute a will can execute a will in your simple Marathi language or in any language which you are conversant with, maybe Hindi, Marathi, English, or your mother tongue. You may execute the will in that particular language. You can write down in simpler words that how do you want the disposition of the property to be given to the person or your heirs. You can write it down. For the advocates or the lawyers, I would like to generally stress over a point that when a will is drafted normally, we should all keep in mind that the person who the will or the document is going to be read after the person is no more. So the will should be drafted in such a fashion, it should be so explicit and clear. The wording should be so explicit that there should be no anomaly in writing the will. You should avoid nicknames in writing the will. That is your pet names. Ki I want to give my property to my son Bablu, my Tablu. All these words should be avoided while making a will. You should write proper names so that the person can be identified as to who the property will go to after the demise of the person. Again, coming to the point that whether a medical certificate, in fact, I'll touch the this part later, attestation part later. There are provisions, my friends, in the will which state about the residuary clauses. I would say that a residuary clause, in fact, should be incorporated by each and everyone in the will. Now, what is a residuary clause? By my will, if a person, he has two properties in Pune as well as in Mumbai. If a person in his will writes down that my Pune property goes to my daughter and my Mumbai property goes to my wife. After he dies, he gets a share in some of his HUF property or a property which he had in his village, a joint family property, that particular share comes to him, which was not in his knowledge or contemplation. What will happen to that property if it will be devolved or it will be disposed? The share in that property will be disposed as if the person has not left a will. But if he has left a will and if he writes a residuary clause in the will, then in that residuary clause, if he mentions that anything and everything, if I don't mention in the will is of my ownership, that will go to my wife or my daughter or whoever of his choice, then that residuary clause will come to the help or rescue at that particular time. If there is a residuary clause mentioned by that particular testator at the time of death, then that right, undivided right in his village property will go to his wife, because whatever he had not mentioned in the will becomes a residue. So whatever he forgot to mention or whatever has come to his share after his death, which he has not mentioned in the will, takes care by this residuary clause. So in my humble opinion, if there should be a residuary clause mentioned in each and every will. The clause, or rather the aspect about the Hindu undivided family. Yes, a will or a person can dispose his property by share in the Hindu undivided family by a will. I like to cite two judgments in this regard, whether a person can dispose his property by share in Hindu undivided family property or a joint family property by a will. Section 30 of the Hindu Succession Act takes care of this. The judgments which I like to rely are, first is 1993 4 Supreme Court cases, SCC 392.
आजच्या स्पीकर अंबिके मॅडमच्या इकडे जरा टेक्निकल इश्यूज क्रिएट झालेले, तिथे लाईट गेल्या कारणाने आता मॅडम मोबाईलवरून परत कनेक्ट होतील आपल्याशी. प्लीज वेट, बी ऑनलाईन. थँक्यू.
I'm extremely sorry, some technical issues which no one has any hand on. Yes. So I was on the topic that what we should include in the will. There should be a residuary clause in every while drafting a will. Am I audible, Sandeep?
Yes, yes, continue, please.
While drafting a will, we also need to take care of the aspects that we should avoid confusion. The interpretation of all the words should be clear, so that whenever a will is interpreted or if it is tested in the court of law, the will should be, rather the wording should be so specific and clear that the anomaly or ambiguity in any of the words should be avoided. My friends, therefore, while drafting a will, we need to take few precautions. Now, what happens if there are also provisions which state that what happens if there is ambiguity in drafting of will, or if we are not able to understand? At times, there are provisions which clearly state that if a will, by making of which the terms are not clear or they are uncertain, then in that case, the will becomes invalid or void. So how important it is to know that the drafting of will should be crystal clear, specific, because we can't forget the aspect that the person who has written this is no more to tell us what is the meaning of that words. So if you are writing in your handwriting, you should avoid scratching it or writing it or overwriting it. If you are typing out, make it clear that the spelling mistakes are avoided. So make particularly a crystal clear form. As I stated, avoid writing of nicknames, as well as describe the property in such a way that it is identifiable. Just don't write that I have left a property in Mumbai, I have left a property in Pune. Make specific. The description of the entire property should be specific. The to whom it should be given, the name should be written in full. So a clear-cut description. Even for the movable property, like mostly the women want to give their ornaments. So make it clear that this particular gold chain, its description, how is it, in which form, its weight or whatever. Make it clear while writing a will, so that the further ambiguity or anomalies can be avoided. There are important things that if such things are left out to be written, the will may become rather void will and cannot be read in the court of law. Therefore, to make that your will is legal and valid, or to keep it legal and valid, avoid this particular technicality or rather mistakes while drafting a will. Now coming to the more intricate and technical aspect, the execution of wills. How do we execute, or rather, how can the execution or attestation of wills be done? As I stated, the will is divided in three parts. Firstly, you write down your name, your general description. The second part comes the composition, or the main part, by which you give away your properties, describing it, that so and so property, my property in Chembur will go to my son, my property in Mumbai at Santa Cruz will go to my daughter, and so on. So it should be described properly. So that description part takes care, that is the main part. And the attestation is also an important part. Section 63 of the Indian Succession Act describes the attestation of will or the execution of wills. For the general unprivileged wills, or for the generalized category like you and me, the execution of the will should be made in a particular manner as given in section 63. What is that? For that purpose, I like to also refer the section, because the wordings of the section are very crucial. Section 63A of the succession, the will is divided into three parts, A, B, and C. A part states that the testator, as I have stated, testator is a person who writes the will. The testator shall sign or shall affix his mark to the will or to it, or it shall be signed by some other person in his presence and by his direction. So what is mandated by section 63A is the testator, that is the person who writes a will, should sign the will or affix a mark. A mark may be a thumb impression at times, or a person who cannot sign can put his mark, that is his thumb impression. It shall be signed by some, or it shall be signed by some other person in his presence and as per his direction. So it can also be signed by any other person on his behalf. If I make a will, I am unable to sign it, then I can tell any of my trusted person to sign the will on my behalf or put a mark on my behalf, and as per my wish, that is my direction, I should tell the other person, I should direct the other person to put that mark or signature on my behalf. The second, that is B clause, it states that the signature or mark of the testator or the signature of the person signing for him shall be so placed that it shall appear that it was intended thereby to give effect to the writing as a will. The simple thing is, that the signature should be put at the end, like after we complete a letter, we sign it at the end of it. So the signature should be put in such a way to know that the will is ended, and that is, it is completely executed, so that the intention that the will, the completion or execution is completed should be clear by that mark. I like to clear one more aspect here. While drafting the will or while execution of the will, kindly avoid any interpollination or scratching, as I said, obliteration of wills. Whenever you rather
मॅडम डिस्कनेक्ट झाले.
avoid scratching of words in the will, because what happens in the latter part, or after when the will is interpreted or when it is challenged, this interpollination or scratching of obliteration brings disputes that whether that part was written or not. Therefore, generally avoid any mistakes, making mistakes or scratching or writing in between line in the will. I was on point 63B of the will. So sign it at the end of the will to know that the intention of the testator that he has executed the will. The C part is very, very important. Why it is important? Because when a will or a dispute arises because of the will, this part is very crucial to prove a will. When the will goes in the courts of law, this part is necessary, and it has to be read along with the Evidence Act provisions to know that whether the will is properly executed, and it is to prove basically 63C is necessary. And therefore the attestation should be such that there should be no manner of doubt that yes, the will was executed by the testator. What does 63C say? The will shall be attested by 2 or more witnesses, each of who has seen the testator sign or affix his mark to the will, or has seen other person sign or sign the will. In short, the will can be attested by 2 persons or any number of persons, not only 2. There is a misconception that the will can be attested only by 2 persons. No, the will can be attested by 2 persons or 4 persons or 5 persons to make it more secure that yes, the execution can be then proved by this. If one is not available, 2 not available, 3. So any one of them can prove this attestation. Therefore, it can be minimum by 2 and maximum by 3 or 4, any number. So the will shall be attested by 2 persons who has seen the testator signing the will, or not only signing, if it may happen that a person executing the will signs the will and then calls the witness to attest it. Then what happens? Then he may acknowledge. Acknowledgement of that signature is also essential, or the testator can acknowledge his signature or signing of the will. Further, in the presence and by the direction of the testator, or has received from the testator a personal acknowledgement of his signature or mark, or of the signature of such other person, and each of the witness shall sign the will in the presence of the testator, but it shall not be necessary that more than one witness be present at the same time, and no particular form of attestation shall be necessary. What does 63C specify is that 2 witnesses or more witnesses, as I said, can attest a will. Attest is sign a will. Witness it, that yes, I know the testator has executed the will. They can sign that will in witness of execution. But how can that attestation takes place? The testator can call them. He can sign the will in presence, that is the person executing the will can sign the will in presence of all the witnesses together. So they are present in each other's presence. If one of them is not present, one witness is not present, there is no difficulty in that. Whenever he comes for attestation, What is required is the testator should acknowledge his signature that yes, I had signed the will. This is my will. I know the contents. There was an intention to dispose of my property. I have signed my will. That acknowledgement should be sufficient enough to attest the will by the witness. So basically, the witnesses should know that it is that person who has executed the will, or the person on the testator's behalf has signed or put his mark on the will, which is a good attestation. Now, is there a specific mode of attestation? No. The person attesting, the witnesses, two or more witnesses, can attest the will by simply signing and acknowledging that yes, they are the witnesses. They know that the person has made a will, and they know that he is the one with the intention who has executed it. That is more and more enough. Because we need to understand that when we examine the witnesses for attestation, because the person who executes the will is no more. So who will you call? The attesting witness is called in the box to tell the truth or the authenticity of the will. So this attestation is important or crucial, therefore, for attestation. Now, who can be these attesting witnesses? This is also an important part. The act basically states that the beneficiary, that is the legatee, to whom you desire to give the will, should not basically be the attester. You should avoid making the beneficiary the attesting witness to the will. Some third party or person who is younger than you, the executor, the witness, testator, who is younger than the testator, should be normally a witness. Why he should be younger? Because he should be alive when the testator is no more, and therefore a testator or the witness should be younger than the testator who is attesting the will. So this part, I think, takes care of the execution. The second part is, again, we come to the revocation, as I told you, alteration or revival. The will is executed now. Now, if you want to change the will, can you change the will? Yes. As I told you, at any age you can make a will. Till the time of your death, even if you want to change it, the assets may be changed, the properties may be sold, it may be bought. You want to, maybe there are times when you don't want to, you want to change the person. You don't want to give it to a particular person. At that particular time, you can definitely alter the will. How can you alter the will? You can revoke the will by simply making a separate document that I am revoking my earlier will. You can also revoke a will by another will, by executing another will and mentioning in that particular will that I have revoked the will earlier made and this is my last will. So you may make 2 wills, 3 wills, 4 wills, but your last will you should mention that this is the earlier, or this is my last will which should come into force after my death. The revocation of will, in fact, here also I like to cite a judgment reported in 2012 for SCC 387. It is Mahesh Kumar versus Vinod Kumar and others on section 70, that is revocation of wills in the Indian Succession Act. It states that supersession of earlier will by a subsequent will, once execution of subsequent will is proved, former will is automatically rendered redundant. As I mentioned, you can make 4 wills, 5 wills, 6 wills. By your last will, which is the 6th will, your earlier 5 will become redundant. So they will not be read if you are able to prove that yes, the 6th will was the last and final will. So this particular citation is on that aspect. Now the crucial question comes. The will is executed as per the mode what is given. It is perfect. But if it is it becomes contentious or it is contested in the court of law, the responsibility is on the advocate to prove such kind of will in the courts of law. The more burden lies on the party who propounds the will that yes, this was the last legal and valid will made by my ancestor or my father or mother, And therefore, as I told you, to avoid all this, firstly, what is necessary is the execution of will should be proper and perfect. But still, if the dispute arises as to how the or the about the will, how can you prove a will in the courts of law? The when the will has to be proved, rather in the proceedings of probate or in the letters of administration or any disputed will whereby you seek declaration of the legality or the validity or even cancellation, when you seek cancellation of wills, you need to either prove or disprove wills, because the party who rather propounds the will wants to prove it, the party who is against it wants to prove that no, it was made by force, undue influence, fraud, or whatnot and what for. So for that, we need to basically see how we can with the proof of wills. This part can be dealt with, or I'll go to the provisions of the Indian Evidence Act for that purposes. Section, as I stated, that basically will is ultimately a document, and therefore the proving of the will also takes place as if it is a document. It is a document of transfer basically, which comes into effect after the death of the testator. How can you prove the will? The will can be proved as per section or chapter 5 of the Evidence Act, like any other document. So what is necessary to prove is the contents of the document as well as the execution of the document in respect of the will, like any other document. Section 61 of the Evidence Act onwards deal with the proving of documentary evidence. I'll directly jump to section 68, which is in respect of documents which require attestation. I'll read the provisions of section 68 particularly. Now, as I told you, will is such kind of document which requires attestation by two witnesses. This document needs to be proved, therefore, through the attesting witnesses. There are documents like gift or mortgage, which also requires the attestation by witnesses. Will is also such kind of document, and therefore, when such kind of documents are brought or needed to be proved in the courts of law, section 68 has to be applied, and the test of 68 should be completed to prove a will in the courts of law. Now, what is section 68? Proof of execution of document required by law to be attested. If a document is required by law to be attested, it shall not be used as evidence until one attesting witness at least has been called for the purpose of proving its execution. If there be an attesting witness alive and subject to the process of the court and capable of giving evidence. In short, so I'm coming to the last part. It's section 68 of the Evidence Act. So only one witness may be examined while proving the will, and that is enough. But what is necessary to be stated by that witness is that he should prove the content, that yes, because 68 at that particular time will have to be read with section 63C of the Indian Succession Act, knowing the attestation. So attestation should be proved by that attesting witness, and therefore that is also necessary. So 63C along with 68 have to be complied with in proving the will. What this attesting witness is necessary to be stated is that the contents of the document are correct. I had seen the testator has signed in my presence with an intention to make the will. He had made the will. The other witness who was there was so and so. I know he has also signed the will, and at that juncture, the proving of the will is completed. Further, what happens if out of the two witnesses, none of them is alive, because section 68 imposes a condition that two witnesses should be, either of the witness can give evidence in that regard. What happens with none of the witnesses are there before the court, or they are not alive, or they are rather not traceable to come before the court. Then the further sections take care of that. They are 69, 70, which create or they test one condition that if this, then that, or if 69 is not able to be complied with, you can comply with 70, not 70, then 71. So I'll just deal with only 69 first. If no such attesting witness can be found, or if the document purports to have been executed in United Kingdom, I'll say we skip that part. It is not applicable here. If no attesting witness can be found, it must be proved that the attestation of one attesting witness at least is in his handwriting, and that the signature of the person executing the document is in handwriting of that person. So at that particular time, if the two witnesses are not able to come to test before the court, what we can do is the person who is propounding the will can get someone by which what we can prove is we must prove the attestation that yes, that witness, the handwriting of the attesting witness is of him. It can be proved by bringing other documents to the court of that attesting witness that yes, he had attested, it is his signature, and accordingly we can test it, for which we need to lay the foundation. I forgot to mention one important aspect is whenever a case of will is challenged or a will is challenged in the court of law, the crucial aspect is that we should basically make our pleadings very explicit and clear about the attestation of will, who attested the will, who are the witnesses, who were present, who are not present, who marked their signatures. Everything should be cleared in your pleadings, because we all know that pleadings, yes. Now coming to the provisions of 68, I was on 68, 69 of the Evidence Act. In short, I'll sum up is what is necessary when the will is challenged in the court of law. We need to prove the proper attestation of the will, that they were in compliance and along with section 63C of the Indian Succession Act. Yes. Now to summarize in short, my dear friends, I'd like to, when you challenge the wills so in short, if the will is contested in the courts of law, I was on the point of the proving of the will. In short, basically I cannot end the meeting, rather this topic, whenever a dispute arises about the wills or whenever a will is disputed in the courts of law, a judgment which is pivotal on this aspect of Justice Gajendra Gadkar needs to be pointed out. I'll first cite the judgment, the citation. It is AIR 1959, AIR 1959, Supreme Court 443. Venkatchalaya Iyengar versus B. Thimmajamma and others. This is a very pivotal authority on everything which takes care as to how the proof of this will be taken care of, or any and every aspect of will is taken care of by this authority. Basically, when is the will challenged, there are suspicious circumstances under which the will is made. There are circumstances where allegation of fraud, coercion is made on the party who is the propounder of the will. In that cases, what aspects should be taken care of are dealt with this pivotal authority. Even till today, even the latest, we see the case laws, every case law without this authority or a reference of this authority is made practically in every case law where suspicious circumstances of the will are disputed. And therefore, I would like to make a note to everyone that kindly go through this authority if any case of your, or if you are handling any case where the wills are disputed. On the suspicious circumstances, it is rather the propounder of the will basically should prove the will in the court of law is the mandate. And whenever suspicious circumstances arise, how can you handle those circumstances is considered or stated in the various judgments. The latest one I'll point out is reported in 2017 9 SCC 332, whereby again this various aspect as to under what condition the will was executed, what was the condition of the testator under what circumstances that was executed are very well discussed in this judgment, and therefore you may kindly see this judgment. The next judgment is 2010-14 SCC 266. This judgment, as I stated, deals with section 63C as well as section 68 of the Hindu Succession Act and the Evidence, Indian Succession Act and the Evidence Act, and helps you to know that how the proving of will should be done in the court of law, what are the crucial aspects to be taken note of while proving the will, and therefore this judgment is also necessary to be considered. I like to state two more judgments on the point of whether Hindu undivided family can be disposed of by the way of will. Two judgments, one is 1993-4 SCC 392, which states that under section 30 of the Hindu Succession Act, you can make a will of your undivided family. The second authority is a very recent one on the same point on the HUF property. It is AIR 2019 Supreme Court 643, which again states that share in the Hindu joint family property can be willed away by a member of the joint family. The will, basically, whoever wants to validate or whoever wants to prove the will or propound the will, as it is called, should prove the will. Whoever wants to invalidate or make the will void should prove accordingly. So the burden is on the person who wants to seek its validation or cancellation. Summarizing my lecture here, in short, as I started, when I said that will is such a document which should be made by each and every one of us if you have something to dispose after your death, you should make a will without any age bar. It is a crucial document. Now, from this, we find that the advantages of will are more than the disadvantages. What are the advantages? I'll say the advantage is you can give your property. See, when you accumulate the wealth in your lifetime, if you accumulate the wealth in your lifetime, you feel that the wealth should go in proper hands after I am no more, and it should not go as it is or neglected. So this condition or this situation can be taken care of if you execute a will. Secondly, you can give by the will, you can give the property of your choicest person. Maybe it may be your family member, or it may be an outsider, or anyone of your choice whom you feel that the person of your choice may be of the family or any third party or person. You can also will away your property to any institution. Maybe you can make donations by your will after you're no more. If the person who have lot of properties, will away their properties to various charitable institutions so that they can be used by various institutions after they are no more. So the benefits, I would say, are more than the disadvantages. The disadvantages is only one, I will say, that if you do not make a will, your property will be devolved as per the intestate succession. That is, as per the laws prevailing in the whatever are governed, or you are governed by whichever law, as per that, the devolution of your property will take place. So in short, I want to summarize that the will is such a crucial aspect. It should be made by every single responsible person who wants to give away his property with responsibility and taking care of. I'm really glad for bearing with me, bearing these technical issues what were coming on, and being with me all the time and hearing my words. I'm thankful to the TDCBA, especially Sandeep, who is taking care of the technical issues and giving me this opportunity to present myself on the subject. Thank you so much. I end my lecture here.
Thank you, madam. Thanks a lot, Aarti Ambekar, madam, for such nice informative lecture on subject of will.
Thank you so much.
ठाणे जिल्हा वकील संघटनेतर्फे मी सहसचिव संदीप डोंगरे मॅडमचे आभार मानतो की त्यांनी आज आपल्याला खूप चांगली अशी विल म्हणजे मृत्यूपत्र या विषयावरती अत्यंत महत्वपूर्ण माहिती पूर्णपणे दिलेली आहे. नेटवर्कचे भरपूर इश्यू होते पण मॅडमने आपला फ्लो काही सुटू दिला नाही, त्याबद्दल पण त्यांचा अप्रिशिएट करतो की त्यांनी शेवटपर्यंत ते कंटिन्यू फॉर्म मध्ये राहिले. तसेच आमच्या सर्व कार्यकारिणी समितीच्या सदस्यांचे व व्ह्युअर्सचे पण त्यांनी शेवटपर्यंत, इथे टेक्निकल इश्यूज क्रिएट होते तरी पण कोणी पण त्यातून लॉग आउट झालं नाही. फेसबुक आणि झूम वरती दोघांची संख्या तेवढीच होती, त्याबद्दल त्यांचे सुद्धा धन्यवाद. असे म्हणून मी आजचा कार्यक्रम संपला असं घोषित करतो. धन्यवाद. थँक्यू मॅडम वन्स अगेन.
हॅलो संदीप.
Thank you so much, Sandeep.